Why is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
I guess we have to go back to the beginning here. How did it start with you and the Spice Girls? And do you even know the first piece of memorabilia that you got?
I know everything. My as a collector, your brain is an archive, not only for what you have, but also for your own history and the timeline. Um, Everything's just in there. I'm like an elephant. Everyone says that. Like I remember everything. So I think before we talk about like the first thing I bought or where I was when I first heard them, you have to go back even further than that to
Ooh.
really understand why. And you have to look at my upbringing, where I was. I am the daughter of two artists. So my dad was a sculptor and my mum an architectural painter, drawer. And we lived in a house in the north of England, a mining town, quite poor, grey, cold. Neither of my parents were from there. They'd moved there to teach art, to supplement their practice, I guess. It's quite hard to make enough money as an artist to survive. So they both took part-time teaching jobs. But they were both avid music listeners. And my dad was a record collector. So he was born in 1948 and was born in Warrington near Liverpool, which meant by default that he was around at the right age when the Beatles were playing the Cavern Club. So, and there would always be music on in the house, all the time. At breakfast, when I got home from school, when I went to bed, my dad would be doing the dishes and there'd be music on, and it was everything from Bach to Brian, from David Bowie to Talking Heads, from Bjork to Anthony and the Johnsons.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
So, but how does that upbringing then lead you to scary, posh, sporty,
Yes.
and ginger? Who am I missing?
Yes, how did we get to such kitsch?
Well, but wonderful kitsch. Let's just, I mean,
Well,
It is wonderful kitsch.
and I hit 10, 11, and I was in the last year of junior school before you move up to high school in the UK. And I remember always taping the top 40 on the radio and then listening it back over the week. So there I am in my bedroom in the holiday cottage in the coast in the UK. That's where we went on holiday. And my grandparents were with us too, and they forbade music. They wanted to listen to like classical FM, and that was it. The pop music, rock music, no thanks. So I had to go up to my bedroom and kind of listen to it. And I remember it got to like 10 to 7, and they were just about to listen to number one, and they were like, Liz, your dinner's ready. I was like,
how dare you?
no, I'm staying. So, I just listened. And then all of a sudden, I remember Mark Goodyear said, right, everybody, I will let this band introduce themselves. And all of a sudden, he must have pressed play. And there was this wild energy that just came through the radio. And it was, hi, I'm Emma, I'm Mel B, I'm Victoria, I'm Jerry, and I'm Mel C, and we're the Spice Girls. And I was like, oh, who are these people? And then they introduced Wannabe. On it when I was hooked. It was instant. It was just a mantra of a song. It was like 2 minutes 37 of pure pop heaven. And I slunk down for my tea a bit late, and my head was in a different world. And that was the start of, and I just remember it intensely well. And then the week after, we were home, Top of the Pops went on. They were still number one with Wannabe, and they'd obviously gone on a tour of Asia to promote their first album. And so they had to beam the Spice Girls performing in a Japanese temple live onto Top of the Pops. And that's when my dad saw them for the first time. And even he was intrigued. He was like, kind of taking the piss a bit, like, seriously, Liz, do you really like these? Yes, of course I do. I'm 11 years old. I was the perfect target audience for them. And that's how it all began.
What there is liking a band or even being obsessed with a band and saying this is my favorite group, this is my favorite performer, and what they do, what they represent means so much to me. To then take it to the next level of it, there is the collecting of things, to just be in the proximity and surrounded even more so by this thing that gives you great joy and great happiness. And then it tips over where you have what your collection is. And to look on the website, it is astounding the things that you have in this collection.
Thank you. I think.
I mean, you look at, just as I was looking through it here, I mean, you look at the collection, the fact that you have to divide it up into so many different groups is amazing.
Thanks.
But,
Yeah, I had to, of course.
you know, you click on costume and you have the boots with the Union Jack on them. You have some of these costumes and they're on a mannequin, and instantly seeing them, you're like, oh, I know which one wore that. I know which
Yeah.
one is. And then, I mean, different awards, gold records, that sort of thing. Their Ivor Novello nomination, I believe, certificate. To say nothing of the autograph merchandise, to say nothing of the tour books, and not like the one you buy at the vendor, the one for the crew to go, here's the itinerary for the day, and here's what's going to happen. How do you start getting this stuff? And what point do you accept and understand that you might have a problem?
Or a career.
Or yes, or incredibly successful
all of
career.
those things.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the website, and thank you for having a very thorough look by the sounds of it, it's not an overnight thing. Bear in mind that I grew up in Barnsley, which is this, like, in the 80s, it was just nowhere. The Spice Girls weren't going to come and perform in Barnsley or do even a CD or book signing. It wasn't going to happen. So all I did was listen to their music on the radio. And I think I was gifted their first album for Christmas. And then that was like just burnt out because it was played on repeat, and I would make up dance routines in my room and I would just really love it and live it. And then there was a very definite moment where it tipped to, I am a collector. And that wasn't until 1997. So I'd done a whole year of just being a kind of teeny bopper fan in the very normal sense of the word. 1997 rolls round and they release Spice Up Your Life, which is the lead single from the second album, Spice World.
Yeah.
Sorry, I am an encyclopedia and it would be my mastermind topic. So Spice Up Your Life comes out.
It's wonderful.
Which is not my favourite song, actually. But anyway, there was an amazing record shop in town and I went and bought the CD single. This was the first CD single I have bought of any band. Or maybe, no, I lie, me and my brother co-bought NSYNC.
But that was a co-purchase. First solo purchase was Spice Up Your Life.
It was Spice Up Your Life. And I remember going into the record shop and seeing that there was like a CD1 with remixes and a CD2 with B-sides. And I was like, I don't know which one I want.
That's how they got you.
Always.
So I had to buy both. Of
course.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh God, that now means I have to backtrack and go and buy all the singles from the first album. But of course, we're talking like 1997. There was no online. Well, not like that is now. Windows 1998 hadn't come out yet. Labour in the UK was still not in power. Oasis and Blur were having a Britpop off. Just to put it in context, if you typed Spice Girls into the primitive internet, you did not get the Spice Girls pop stars.
Right. No.
I learned the hard way.
Oh,
right.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
learned the hard way.
So, talk about, if you think back to where we were historically, it was when you went into a record shop and CD2, after the first week of sales, disappeared from the shelves. So it was a kind of play from the record producers to try and get people to buy as many copies in the first week to get them high up in the charts as possible. And then, CD2 disappeared. It was just not out of, I guess it was out of print. I don't know. So I could go happily into a big city record shop and I could buy Wannabe, say you'll be there, two become one, and Mama, who do you think you are? But could I get the CD2? No. And then that became annoying. And I felt a lesser fan for not having those copies or not thinking to have those copies. Meanwhile, every birthday and Christmas, I was being gifted T-shirts, the Polaroid camera, albums, books. But you would go into the shops or you would walk down the high street in 1997 and every shop, even if it was a newsagent, every magazine would have them on the cover. You'd go into a card shop and there would be T-shirts and mugs for sale and little figurines. You'd go into a toy shop and there would be the dolls, the pencil cases, the bags, the Cinderella shoe sets, the lunch boxes. It was, you go into a CD shop and there was more merchandise. There was the VHS of the movie. It was just everywhere. You went into the supermarket, they had a deal with Walker's Crisps, they had a deal with Impulse body spray, they Pepsi. It was unavoidable and it was in your face. And I wanted it all. But I was being given £3 a week pocket money.
This is my follow-up question. Yeah.
So I would save up, and at the time I remember there would be like the postcards you could collect in an album, and I would get my pocket money in my hand on a Friday night and I would run up to the newsagents and I would get 3 packets, tear them open and see which ones I had, which is a kind of normal child fan. But then on Saturday I'd go into town with my friends and I'd see all this stuff and my heart would flutter with frustration and excitement, like I want this stuff. And I never felt that sense of urgency before about anything in my life. And now as an adult, I understand that feeling of being obsessed with someone or something, being in love. And my mom hated them. My dad didn't hate them. He thought the whole thing was quite amusing because he got it.
Well,
he got it.
Beatlemania, this is the next wave of that similar obsession. Yeah.
And he was like, you know what, if this is what Liz likes, let her spend her pocket money on whatever she wants. It's up to her. She's got to learn. And my mom likes the finer things in life. My mom's got very good taste. And I think she thought it was just a flash in the pan. She might have thought they were a one-hit wonder or hoping they were. She just thought it was absolute crap. And she did not let me bring it into the house. Like the stuff, like the dolls and stuff. But I couldn't afford the dolls. There was no way. A set of dolls, they were like £100. So I just remember being age 12 and being quite stuck, really. Like I knew as well that this stuff would disappear from the shops and then how was I going to get it? So I just had to make do with what I could afford and birthday and Christmas presents and let the rest go by the by. Sometimes you would see this, like the official merch range in like pound shops, and I'd just fill my boots and smuggle in bags and bags of this stuff. And then I would arrange it on my IKEA Billy bookcases in my bedroom and have it all on display, but all still in the packaging. So I guess that's quite interesting because most of my friends were wearing the backpacks and T-shirts and using the pencils and the rulers and the rubbers at school. And I wasn't interested in that. I wanted to preserve. I found more pleasure in showcasing these objects. Now, daughter of 2 artists, I was used to going to galleries and museums. So I was used to looking at things on plinths behind glass.
Mhm.
And I think, looking back, like that stuff I was putting on a pedestal because the more stuff I had made me feel naively that I was closer to my idols. And that is the crux of it.
Makes sense.
But there is a £3 a week buying the t-shirts and posters and all the ephemera that goes along with it is one thing. And certainly a lot of people have those uh, times in their life where they find that thing that that makes them happy, that gives them joy, and they want more of that in their life. That makes complete sense to me. Or maybe that's the wrong way to phrase it, but I understand that. Um, but then we go into another level of collecting. What was the
But that
first?
took years. It was years. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm now going to buy costumes, because you just couldn't get them.
Well, I was going to say, like, it obviously took some time. You weren't going, all right, 3 weeks, I got 9 pounds, great, we're getting some shoes. Um, but like, so did this obsession continue unabated throughout the years, or did you kind of have
Yes.
a point where it was like, I'm okay for now, and then something happens
Oh,
and you're like, actually, I've rediscovered this thing. This is my love now.
So
no, I was hook, line, and sinker.
even as they sort of went off on their own and kind of did
I
their own
collected
thing,
that as well.
yeah. So they continue. So that's interesting. Like, what was it that made you continue to like keep that? Like, and I still love everyone I've ever loved. Like, I still have my one and only Spice Girl thing that I have. I've never left her. I still have my Posh Spice in a box sitting right next to me right
Bring
now.
her out, bring her out.
I still have her, just right here.
What's the
I
street
do.
value of that? Never mind.
I don't care. Someone tried to look it up yesterday because they're like, I'll buy it from you. I'll sell it. That's probably worth a lot. She will never leave me. I love her. And like, I love everything I love, and I never stop loving it. But I'm not a collector because I just am not because just, I don't know, because I love too many things. But um, I would have no home if I was a collector because I'm not good with money. So what was it that made you still want to collect? Not just still love them, but want to collect?
Because I was in full throes of an obsession. And the obsession was, no matter if they disbanded or went solo career, that I was going to show my appreciation for them as a fan through collecting.
And at that
Uh,
point, were you still wanting to collect to keep it for yourself? Or at that point, did you think you'd want to do more to share with others with it?
I had a box of like every magazine they were on the cover of, solo or group, I bought it. I had a box or two full of stuff, and I think I'm now 15. And I remember thinking I had the biggest collection in the world, which was absolute bullshit.
But did it become a quest at that point to have the biggest collection in the world?
Not like no, I just thought I did because I had a lot. But then I was, there was no Messenger, there was no WhatsApp, there was no forums, there was
Yeah.
nothing to know how you compared. Well, there was starting to be, because I was 15 and the millennium turned. So that's kind of the plotted history. So I am obviously in that really special generation where I grew up with analog and we are now in a digital world, and I understand and appreciate both.
Mhm.
And I'm still a bit of an analog fan as a collector for obvious reasons. I like physical things and I like how you can interact with them, and like I still like physical music. Like it took me, and in fact, I've only just got Spotify in the last 3 months. Like I've held off.
I get it.
So yeah, that the dynamic of the collecting continued, but it kind of just trickled. I wasn't, because the Spice Girls as individuals, as solo artists, didn't merch. They didn't
Mhm.
go to town like the Spice Girls had, and that complete phenomena of the Spice Girls had started fading. You didn't go into shops and see it all anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I had what I had from that period. And I was, I guess, unaware at this point that you could somehow get hold of it. So I go off to art school, aged 18. And I suppose between 15 and 18, although I still was buying bits and bobs, like Victoria Beckham had started making jeans, perhaps I'd got a pair of jeans, I don't know.
Perhaps.
wish I had
Maybe they'd started writing books and I got a book. But between 15 and 18, I think I started becoming more interested in human beings in real life.
Overrated, but go on.
Boys and my mates had become more interesting, going out, trying to get into clubs. Underage was a priority. Dancing, like just having a dance. And it didn't matter who it was to. I don't even need to get drunk. I just, I go out on a couple of quid, pint of water and a good tune, and I'm great. I'm happy. I've always just loved dancing and feeling that sense of freedom through music. And then I get to art school, and you go into the library and there's banks of computers with the internet. I mean, I did have the internet at home. It's not like I lived in the Middle Ages, but it was faster and you didn't have to plug it in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was armed with a savings and a student loan, which is dangerous when you discover eBay. And you can see where this is going. So I used to go into the studio 5 days a week, 9 till 5. And I was trying desperately to make art about, the tutor said, you make art about what you're interested in. And I was like, yeah, celebrities, pop, music, Spice Girls. So I'm like trying to make art about that. And it was awful. At one point, I thought I was going to make a life-size doll of myself. And my tutor was like, please don't. That was just a huge waste of materials. I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I didn't. I think I made like a little wax head, like a little Barbie doll head of myself. And then I looked at it in profile and realized the nose was just hideous. So I just took it no further. Nobody wants that. But I would then go off into the art school library after hours. I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have a smartphone. And I would just trawl eBay, type in the Spice Girls, and you would get 10,000 hits at any one point. So you're like looking at 18 pages, 20 pages, scrolling. And it was a realization that I'm searching worldwide as well. So it's a realization that stuff existed that I didn't know existed. Like there was whole sets of dolls that were just released in the USA. There was versions of the CDs, which were ever so slightly different from every country in the world. There was merchandise I saw in the shops and wasn't allowed to buy or couldn't afford to buy that I now could. So what was happening is I linked my debit card to PayPal and I would bid, not thinking straight at this point, because this is like absolute full throttle obsession now. That I didn't have the logical thought that this promo single, which only DJs were given, might come up again. Never seen this before. Bid. And then I'd win it and it would get shipped to my parents' house. And then 3 days later, your money would be debited via PayPal to your bank account. So I was buying at a faster rate than my money was being deducted, which was really dangerous. My mum and dad, on the other hand, were on first name terms with postman. I would have to ask my dad to open things to check they were okay, of course, so I could leave feedback. And this is when eBay was more of a community, but I'm doing global stuff. So I'm learning about different currencies. I'm learning different languages. I'm learning how to communicate with people in different parts of the world in order to get this stuff. But my student loan is now really like,
Not looking great.
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So then you discover that you can get an overdraft.
Yeah.
And then you discover that, yeah, this is out of control. But you also discover you can get dresses that they wore and boots that they wore, because what's happened is that people would have gone to an auction, like Jerry auctioned off all her iconic costumes back in 1998 at Sotheby's in London. I remember seeing it on Blue Peter, be like, wow, like, and there was little kids there being interviewed whose mummies and daddies were buying this shit for them, and I was like, mine are not doing that. My dad's see David Byrne, which
Right.
but yeah, I didn't, it was just a dream. And it stayed a dream for, until I was like 20. And I remember starting to see these costumes that people had kept in their closet for like 10 years, reselling them. And I could then buy them.
Mhm.
I'm assuming it was a lot more affordable, kind of post peak of Spice World.
Yeah. So I think people thought they were going to buy these things, sit on them, and then they'd be able to like buy a house. And it wasn't the case, because they were selling them at the wrong time. They were selling them when the Spice Girls hadn't even done like a return tour. They were just did nothing. And I think I remember my first ever piece of like clothing that they actually wore was via a Mel C auction. So she does a lot for charity, and she donates quite a lot of her outfits so fans can bid. I remember winning a top she wore on one of her solo albums on eBay. I think I spent £419 on it. It's not very famous.
But it seems
Yeah.
relatively reasonable.
Yeah, but I thought, I mean, that was a lot to me then.
Yeah.
Certainly, yeah.
Of
But I
course.
mean, in the grand scheme of things, of going like for 400 pounds, I can have something that has had a physical connection to this
Mhm.
person who I admire and who I really, I guess, admire is a bit of a uh, not as strong a word one might use to describe your interest in this group. Um, but to have that, that interaction with something, and I definitely understand that idea of like, I want to have something that they touched, that they wore, that they signed. Um, at what point do you start thinking, I actually may have the biggest Spice Girls collection in the world? Because that is, again, another level up of
Mm.
all of this.
I mean, I'm now on the forums at this point. So this was now 2006, 5, 6, 7. That's when I was at Glasgow School of Art. And so I become known through the forums, through the fan connections, as a predominant collector. Because it's like, oh, I've tried bidding on this thing, but Liz has just pipped me to it again. So there was a bit of like hatred there, but then people would say, well, because this is when you could see the name of the people who you were bidding against. So people were aware, and they were always like, oh, hello. People doing the same, they wanted the same things. And yeah, those people have said to me now, we kind of hated you, but at the same time, we were glad that it was going to you, because we kind of knew that you were going to look after this stuff. How at that point, I don't know. So then what happened is that I start making work I'm in my third and final year. I have a really great tutorial with my art tutor who says, look beyond the Spice Girls. Think about why you started liking the Spice Girls in the very first place. What was it about them? And I thought about how, as a 8, 9, 10-year-old, I would collect nail varnish and I would line them up against my bedroom window in the colour order, or pencils or crayons or sweets. It was always in the colour order, and it was always of an interest in very vibrant, rich, synthetic hues. And of
I see where
course,
this is going.
yeah. And it's like, hang on, what were the Spice Girls? There were 5 individual women who, you know, they weren't like the Supremes or Eternal, who were all made to wear the same things. They were all there. They were caricatures of themselves. They all had their own personalities, and everyone had a favorite. I could never choose. Don't even ask me that question. Collectively, they were magical. Collectively, they worked. Take one component away from that and it starts breaking down.
Mhm.
Collectively, they were the color palette. They were sparkle. They were kitsch. They were everything in that sense, like aesthetically, very pleasing to me. And so my art tutor got to the bottom of this and he was like, right, well, you're clearly interested in color then, aren't you? Yes. And then it took a bit of thinking, and it was actually the color used in light, artificial light, natural light, rather than solid surface color that I was really interested in. So I started making work about light and color, making these immersive experiences, which are often larger than life, and thinking about me as an 11-year-old wanting to be a pop star. Can't sing. So you know, I wanted to be in a music video, and I would pretend to be in music videos or on stage, and I'd do quick changes behind my wardrobe. But I was never going to do that. That was never going to be my life. But I knew the art world because of my parents. I was now on this journey. And there was definitely a crossroads before I went to art school where it was like, do I do set design or do I do art? And because I'd been taken to museums and galleries throughout my life, I knew that there was a genre within the art world, which was immersive installations and light work, light art. I didn't have to be a painter or a sculptor or make drawings. That wasn't a path I had to follow. So yeah, started making work that was basically like putting my visitors inside a 90s music video. And then it was like a light bulb moment, and I've not been making work about anything else ever since. Of course, if you know, you know, and there's still people who follow my practice who don't know about the Spice Girls connection. And then when they find out, it's like, oh, yes, of course, it makes perfect sense. But back to the question.
But it's interesting. I mean, you were talking, sorry, but you were talking about where you grew up and sort of describing the town and what it was like, you know, in the UK at that time. And then you look at your artwork, and I was thinking this is where this came from. This idea
well, it's
of
a reaction to it, isn't it? It's like this
yeah.
grey place, and I'm injecting this kind of vivid color. And I remember like back when there was neon rather than LEDs, and seeing the kind of reflection of the neon on the wet pavement and being like really beguiled by that. And the vibrant colours would just jump out to me, like walk down the high street on a Saturday morning and all this Spice Girl merch would be like bing, 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 bing. Wow. Yeah.
Because what
It
seems
absolutely makes
striking,
sense.
yeah, and looking at, for me, I think it seems like the installations are the most striking because you do have that contrast between what's going on around it and that it's muted colors, it's darker, or it is made darker by the fact that what you've put in there and what you've created and built and designed is so colorful and is so eye-catching. And so, I mean, I love the fact that you're doing not just, it's not often one solid color, that it is an array of colors, that it is a rainbow, that it is just encompasses everything. And just the message and the idea contained in that is really interesting. And then you go to putting it in a space that could be, I mean, there's one uh, piece of yours that looks like it's in a parking garage or something like that. And it's this great row. You're surrounded by gray concrete and cars and all that. And then there's just this great rainbow in the middle of it all. That just seems like the most like, oh, okay. I
Yeah.
feel better now.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and
if you, I have learned a lot about myself in the last 10 years, really, because I'm now practicing as an artist full time. That is my job.
Mhm.
I get to do the dream. And because I'm making work both in galleries, indoors, outdoors, in the public realm, permanent, temporary, I'm being commissioned by institutions, landowners, developers, and quite a lot of these new developments are grey. They're grey because they're being like steel, concrete, glass. And I'm injecting this colour, chemical colour, into these environments, and often in immersive ways. So when I first got asked to make an outdoor piece of work, what you're told as a child through culture is that a sculpture is something on a plinth, a figure on a plinth. That's public sculpture, that's public art. And when I got asked to propose my first public art piece, it was like, no, why does it have to be something on a plinth? Why can't it be a pavilion? Why can't it be something you can actually enter through and into, and therefore see the world illuminated around you? And that's exactly what I did. But the colours are derived from the 1990s. It's all there. People just need to scratch the surface and look a bit harder.
Yeah.
But let's look even further back than the Spice Girls. I, as a 6-year-old, watched on a loop Talking Heads True Stories film. I probably didn't get the narrative, although I did, John Goodman, great character, and these absolutely wild eccentrics that David Byrne had invented. But I watched that on repeat. And some of the visuals that were in that film, or in Stop Making Sense, or in any of the album covers that Talking Heads did, or that even just like the Tom Tom Club front album cover, it's just so wild and vivid and rich.
Well, and what's David Byrne's newest record cover?
Yeah, it's mad. It's psychedelically insane.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was what was intriguing me between the ages of 0 and 11. Then the Spice Girls came along, and it's like perfect age, slam dunk, there I'm hooked. All the while I'm still listening to all my dad's music. I'm still going to, I've still been to loads of amazing concerts that aren't just the Spice Girls. It's music that fascinates me. But let's think again, like I'm in this mad obsession at art school, and I'm getting all this stuff, and I'm suddenly like, oh, I know what I'm doing with my art now. And then what happens? This is 2007. I graduate, I run out of money because I've spent it all on like Jerry's clothes. I can't stay in Glasgow where there's a brilliant art scene. I'm forced to move back in with my parents in Barnsley with all this stuff around me. I'm like, shit. I've got a £2,500 overdraft. I've got no savings, no student loan anymore. What the hell do I do? In my last year, I'd done a placement at a museum in Paisley, just outside of Glasgow. And I couldn't help but share with the curator. At this stage, I had maybe 20 of the costumes. And she was like, what you should do is when you graduate, you should write letters to museums and tell them what you have. And try and ask if you can curate, because she said you seem to be very knowledgeable about them. See if you can curate the exhibitions, but also take a higher fee. Exactly what I did.
So smart.
It's amazing.
So I sat on my single bed in Barnsley at my parents' house, writing on my laptop letters, posting them off, putting a stamp on the envelope. And I begin to get some replies. The Spice Girls were desperately uncool at this point because they hadn't existed long enough to circle back into popular culture.
Right.
And they hadn't done reunions, and they kind of hadn't, they were only in their 30s themselves, probably as women, and they hadn't, they were not as culturally significant as you might have hoped from their success in the 90s. Like they hadn't done what they needed to do to become icons yet. So my collection was a laughingstock. Quite badly. And people were like, what are you doing? You're insane. Why have you spent all of this money? Do you know how much money you've spent on it? No. So it felt quite a slog to get museums and galleries like interested in this, even though I was saying, culturally and historically, they have their place, not only in music history, but because their merch and everything that I have, which included like newspaper covers, magazines, it speaks of a time in history. But museums, yeah, took a bit of persuading until Leeds City Museum had a really cool curator. And she said, right, let's put this in front of the board of trustees. And we did a whole pack. And she was like, how many things do you think you've got? And I was like, I think about 5,000 individual objects. She was like, holy shit. This was like 2009. And she said, okay, the board have agreed. We've got £20,000. 10 of that can be yours. £10,000 to make an exhibition. You can have the big space. We'll open a show, 6 months long. We will exhibit your whole collection.
Wow.
Before that, it had just been, oh yeah, we'll take a few dresses and put them in display cases and here's 500 quid. This was like the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Bearing in mind, I'm still kind of living back home with my mum and dad, and I took a job working at the local arena as a steward. So I'm watching concerts every night now. It's become my job, but I still want to be an artist. I feel like for 3 years, I was a security steward. But the museum, the Leeds City Museum exhibition was the catalyst for real big change for me, because with that £10,000, I could afford to move to Manchester, which was a city I always fancied. So yeah, I was like, moved to Manchester, met my husband, didn't ever have to work a part-time job, got a studio, made art.
That's awesome.
Now, I would say the end, but it wasn't the end. But yeah, it was pretty good. That was pretty good.
And so is it through the exhibitions? Do you contact Guinness? Do they contact you?
I contacted them. So the Leeds City Museum exhibition was proposed in 2009 and it didn't happen until 2011. And they said, oh, we'd love to do a public event as part of this exhibition, which is on for 6 months. What do you think would be a good idea? I was like, we could do a talk, or how about we do a Guinness World Record count and people can come and watch it being done. I was like, yeah. Everyone was like, yeah. So we had to, print, because everything was catalogued on my website. So we kind of printed off all my cataloguing. We had to get people like volunteers to come check it off, make videos of all that happening, send it all off in a big file to Guinness. Before that, I think I had to apply to Guinness for the record, and they set quite stringent rules. So I had to get above 1,000 things to even be considered. And they had to be Spice Girl things. So all that, Jerry Halliwell, Mel C, Victoria Beckham, all the solo stuff. Heartbreaking. Didn't count. But I knew I had over 1,000. So yeah, got the Guinness World Record in 2011 for the largest collection of Spice Girls memorabilia in the world, which stood at 2,066 objects.
So that was 2011. Do you continue to spice up your life?
Yes. I took my husband on our first date to Leeds City Museum, and then we went to the art gallery afterwards. It was like, this is me.
Yeah, you can take this. Do you know what you're at?
So I have just had it recounted officially, and Guinness turned 70 a few weeks ago. They approached 6 record holders in the whole history of records ever to have their collection kind of featured as part of their promotion for that anniversary, but also do a recount. So the adjudicator used my thorough archive website to do that count. And yeah, we're at bang on 5,000.
For more information on Liz's Spice Girls collection, you can find her online at spicegirlscollection.com. And for more information on her work, you can find her at liz-west.com.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?